Sensational Saturday, hoops enthusiasts. It's your boy Hawk here with a little hoops talking squawk. And I mean, in this topic, this discussion is about Andrew Toney, the Boston Strangler. Why the Philadelphia 76ers organization needs to reach out to this man, do whatever they need to do, bring Toney into Philly, and honor him the right way, the sensational way, by retiring his number 22 to the rafters, where it rightfully belongs. And the man also deserves a statue on Legends Walk, along with all the other Sixers legends. You know what I mean? Andrew Toney is one of the most underrated players in franchise history. It would have been a sure Hall of Famer if not for those unfortunate foot injuries that led to his premature retirement. You know what I mean? He's the NBA champion with the 1983 Sixers, averaged just under 20 points that season. A two-time All-Star in 1983 and 1984. Would have definitely made more All-Star appearances hadn't it been for his career being cut short. You know what I mean? Andrew Toney was lethal. Man, he could light it up. And had he not played on the Sixers with Hall of Famers like Doc, Moses, Mo Cheeks, Bobby Jones, and a little later on Charles Barkley, Toney could have averaged 30 points a game easy. He definitely would have had a slew of 40 and 50 point games on his resume. You know what I mean? Because even as a Sixer, he's had a few 40-point games, including a career high 46 points against the Lakers in 1982. You know, I'm just sitting here, just doing some editing, watching old games on YouTube, and I come across Game 4 of the 1982 Eastern Conference Finals, where Andrew scores a career high 39 points against the Celtics. You know, and this is the famous series where he scored 34 in Game 7 as the Sixers defeat the Celtics at the Garden, where the fans famously chanted, "Beat LA, beat LA." But man, Andrew Toney's his number being retired is long overdue. And as much as I love the Patrick Beverley signing, when I seen him holding up that number 22, that's just another reminder that that number should be retired. You know what I mean? I said the same thing when Matisse Thybulle and I think Rashawn Holmes before him wore number 22. Like that number should have been retired 20 years ago. You know what I mean? The beef with Andrew Toney is really with Harold Katz, who thought Toney was faking those foot injuries and wasn't seriously hurt. That's really where the animosity originated. But the 76ers, like as a team, Andrew Toney definitely deserves that honor. Definitely. You know, I need to search for a way to reach out to Andrew, and I'm definitely going to reach out to the 76ers organization. Like, this reunion needs to happen. Because you know you honor Andrew, you know Doc's going to be in the building, Mo Cheeks, hopefully Billy Cunningham, Bobby Jones, and other members from that 83 team, and Charles Barkley, who's stated on numerous occasions that Andrew Toney was the best player on the team when he was drafted to the Sixers in 1984. You know, Barkley would definitely be in the house for a ceremony like that. But, you know, it's long overdue. And I said this 20 years ago. Andrew Toney's number needs to be retired to the rafters. You know what I mean? It's long overdue. And like I said, I don't care what anybody says. He also deserves a statue on Legends Walk. Come on, just off his nickname alone. The Boston Strangler is one of the most iconic nicknames in Philadelphia sports history. It's one of the most iconic. You know what I mean? Those playoff series in the 80s, we don't beat Boston in 82 without Andrew Toney. You know what I mean? We don't win a title in 83 without Andrew Toney. He was our closer. Because, you know, remedial fans would be like, oh, we still at Dr. Moses. Yeah, if you replace Andrew with another great guard, but Andrew Toney was our closer. You know, we would have had more 80s playoff success if not for his unfortunate foot injuries. You know what I mean? And those injuries really, quiet as kept, really kicked in during that 83 run. If you go back and you watch Game 4 of the championship clincher against the Lakers during a post-game locker room celebration, you have Brent Musburger. He's up there on the podium with Doc, Moses Malone, who was the regular season and finals MVP, Mo Cheeks, and Andrew Toney. When he interviewed Andrew Toney said when he landed, it felt like he didn't have no feet. It was something along the lines of that. He said it felt like he didn't have his feet or something. That's where those injuries began. You know what I mean? Quiet as kept. That's why we choked against the New Jersey Nets in 84 and lost to Boston in 5 games in 85. Not saying we would have beat Boston the return of the finals any of those years, but that 83 and 84 playoff run would have definitely been different had it not. That's when those foot injuries really began. It's just that they started manifesting more during the 85 season. You started noticing it more. You started noticing it more during the 85 season, most noticeably in the 85 Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. But I'm trying to see if I can pull up where Toney makes that statement at the end of the game.
To the 76er dressing room to Brent Musburger. Brent, do you hear me? The Philadelphia 76ers, Maurice Cheeks, quiet. Those are going to be the West champions.
When Cheeks delivered that final slam to seal the 83 title. I'm trying to pull up where Andrew Toney makes that statement about his feet. Like I said, quiet as kept. That's when those foot problems really started kicking in. Listen. Yeah, it's not, but I mean, my OGs know. I know y'all remember when Andrew Toney said when he landed, like at the end of the game, it felt like he didn't have any feet. You know what I mean? And people will say, well, Hawk, you're making too much of that. Maybe that's not what he meant. Like, maybe not, but it's just ironic how less than 2 years later, you know, Toney went from an all-star championship player to appearing in just 6 games during the 85-86 season. And this is a topic for another video entirely, but I'll say this. Had Toney not gotten hurt, those Sixer teams of the mid to late 80s, like 85, 86, 87, would have definitely had a more sensational ending than what they did. We definitely don't go out in the first round in 84 to the Nets. We're not losing in 5 to the Celtics in 85. I'm not saying we will beat them, because, you know what I mean, those mid-80s Celtics teams were definitely championship teams, but it wouldn't have been no quick 5-game series. We would have won at least 7. Same thing with 86, 87. It's the same thing. Because remember, 85 was one of our best playoff runs in the 80s. You know what I mean? We swept the 59-win Milwaukee Bucks. Toney in his final playoff series, well, his final healthy playoff series against Boston, he averaged 17.6 points at 34 minutes a game. The 85 Sixers, that's one of my all-time favorite Sixer teams just based off that roster. You got 5 of the sensational 13. Mo Cheeks, Toney, Doc, Barkley, Moses Malone with Bobby Jones as a 6th man. That's 6 of the sensational 13 players in Philadelphia 76ers history. The sensational 13, that's the 13 most accomplished players in the team's franchise history. The number 13 representing the 13 stars on the 76ers logo. And Andrew Toney, he's in, well, I'll break it down like this. The GOAT tier is Doc, Wilt Chamberlain, and Allen Iverson. Then you got the MVP tier, Moses Malone, Charles Barkley, and Joel Embiid. The franchise legends first tier, Hal Greer, Billy Cunningham, and Dolph Schayes. People will be like, well, he was a Syracuse National. It's still franchise history. You gotta pay homage to Dolph. And the franchise legends tier 2, Mo Cheeks, Andrew Toney, Bobby Jones, and Chet Walker. Now, in the 85 series against Milwaukee, Andrew only averaged 15.3. But remind you, this was a team that would have featured that already has 5 Hall of Fame players. Doc, Moses, Barkley, Cheeks, and Bobby Jones. Would have been 6 had Andrew Toney not had to retire early. He definitely would have been a Hall of Famer. Andrew Toney was drafted 8th overall by the Sixers in the 1980 draft. The top pick was courtesy of a trade in 1976. Andrew Toney was drafted to fill the shooting guard void due to Doug Collins, who also suffered from unfortunate foot injuries and have to retire prematurely. Andrew Toney was brought in really as his replacement, even though they were both on the 80-81 roster. Doug Collins just had to unfortunately retire after 12 games. And that's also why Lionel Hollins was traded to the team in the spring of 1980. Well, late winter, early spring 1980, to fill that void at guard as well. So Andrew Toney, he's drafted to a team that had just won the Eastern Conference and battled the Lakers 6 games, where Magic had that fantastic 42-point game, starting at center in place of the injured Kareem. But Andrew comes on, he averages just under 13 points. Like I said, starting in 57 of the 75 games he appeared in. Only in the playoffs, Billy Cunningham went with the more experienced Lionel Hollins to start in the backcourt with Mo Cheeks. Now remind you, Hollins was on the 77 Portland Trailblazers team that upset the Sixers in 6 games in Doc's first season with the Sixers in the NBA. So Hollins had the championship experience. And that's who Billy Cunningham and most coaches in this case do that. They go with the veteran player. Lionel Hollins was an all-star in 1978. So you can't say it was a bad move by Billy C. However, in Game 6 of the 81 Eastern Conference Finals, Toney only played 23 minutes versus Hollins, who played 34. I think if you give Toney a good 6 or 7 of Hollins' minutes, the outcome of that game would have been different, and we'd have another banner in the rafters. And Lionel Hollins, unfortunate hand injury. I had to stop and think about it because I'm laughing. Like, Lionel Hollins was injured and he got hurt in the 82 playoffs in the first round miniseries when he broke his hand punching Wayne Tree Rollins in the back of the head. That's the game where Tree chased Hollins all behind the basket and into the rows, and man. But that's when Andrew Toney became a full-time starter, because during the 81-82 season, despite Andrew averaging 16.5 points off the bench, he only started 1 game while appearing in 77 games. Hollins was the full-time starter that year in the backcourt with Mo. But it was a blessing in disguise, Lionel Hollins' hand injury, because Billy Cunningham may have went with that same lineup again, and who's to say we would have beat Boston if Toney was still only playing limited minutes? Holland's hand injury allowed Toney to break out during that postseason. You know what I mean? That led to that 39-point performance in Game 4, the 30-point performance in Game 2, then the 34-point performance in the series clincher at the Garden. Yeah, Toney broke out during that Milwaukee series. He averaged 19.5 points in just 31 minutes. But he was efficient, shot 51% from the floor. We beat Milwaukee 4-2 that year. Now, fast forward to the championship season, Toney averages just under 20 points, a season high 42 points in a win at Indiana, March 15th, 1983. Like I said, to say the man's number, because I've encountered a lot of fans who have said, oh, he didn't play long enough to have his number retired. Like, yeah, he may only play 5 seasons, but the Sixers' success during those seasons, Toney was a big part of that. So, like I said, a lot of fans, they really don't have the respect that they should for legends of the past. A lot of them are like stuck in a moment type fans. Like, if it's not about the current team, they don't care about past history. Because even in a lot of these Sixer groups, I'm always posting my throwbacks, like collages, post little stories, whatever. Like, it'll get a few hits, but most just skimp over it. But let you post something about the regular team, the current team, and it's the hottest, you know what I mean, post on the thread. That definitely needs to happen. Number 22 belongs in the rafters. And I see a lot of people deflecting like, oh, Toney still has animosity. Now, his animosity was with HAWKE'S. Because he actually did a promo video during the 2002 playoffs against the Celtics. Now, when Mo Cheeks was hired as head coach in 2005, he was going to bring Andrew Toney on as an assistant, but that never worked out or whatever. But, you know what I mean? There's no reason Andrew Toney should have any resentment towards the current ownership group. But it's also up to the current ownership group to reach out to Andrew Toney and tell him, we want to honor you how you deserve to be honored, and roll out the red carpet for him. You know what I mean? Retire his jersey, give him a statue. You know what I mean? Shit. Have him ring the bell the next time the Celtics come to town. They should have did that before Game 6 of this past year's Eastern Conference semifinal series against the Celtics. You know how sensationally fantastic that would have been had Andrew Toney rung the bell prior to Game 6 and then beating Hart and Don't Choke, and we finally beat Boston and advance past the second round. Even if we don't beat Miami to get to the finals, it still would have been an improvement. But I'm definitely going to reach out to the organization, see about reaching out to the Boston Strangler, maybe do like a little dedication piece to him or something, like a little HAWKE'S vision piece. Like, what if Toney didn't get injured? The only upside to that unfortunate situation is that it paved the way for my Hawkins family, Hersey Hawkins. Hersey Hawkins, you know what I mean? Not quite Andrew Toney, but he definitely played a role when he was hit. He was an all-star too. But you put Hersey in a Andrew Toney type role, like as the third scorer, that could definitely be a championship team. But just sitting here watching Andrew Toney, like during the 80s, like during his prime, you know, like 82, 83. You know what I mean? He was my favorite Sixer. You know what I mean? I was the only guy back in the day when throwbacks was hot. You know, like that 2002, 2003 period where everybody in their mom had a throwback jersey. I was the only one with a home white and a road red Andrew Toney 76ers jersey. I had a custom John because Mitchell and Ness didn't sell them. You know what I mean? They'd be like, well, I used to wear it to the games, the Sixers games. You know what I mean? In the book I wrote, 444 76ers Dynasty, it showed like how, because like I said, quiet as kept, those foot injuries started during the championship season. It just progressed over time to whereby 85 it was really noticeable. You knew by 85 he was still great, but you could see he was starting to lose a step. 85, 86 is where it all started going downhill. You know what I mean? At that point, it's like he was a shell of his former self. Like, it, even though I was real young, like it was just sad to see. Because, you know what I mean, we could have really made some noise during the later part of the 80s, like 85 through 87. You know what I mean? But Andrew Toney would have been a sure Hall of Famer. But you know what I mean? He deserves that respect because, like, even like amongst the fan base, you know what I mean? It's like really only the older cats really talk about him. You know what I mean? And you don't really expect the younger ones to know, but this is why the greats of the past need to be talked about. You know what I mean? The further along we go, the less informed the younger fans are. You know what I mean? We need to speak up our legends more. And that's why I do the stuff I do on social media, like making reels, collages, like posting little stories, whatever, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, some of the younger ones, they bite, but it's mostly the older ones who were around and really lived that era. They appreciate it more. You know what I mean? To me, I'm just a fan of nostalgia and throwback. You know what I mean? Especially in sports, basketball especially. So you know what I mean? I'm an old school hoops enthusiast. You know what I mean? That's why I like a lot of YouTubers that pay a lot of homage to the past greats. A shout out to Too Raw for TV, Too Raw for Sports. You know what I mean? Make sure to subscribe to his channel. You know what I mean? Because he be He be putting cats on game. Like, and I appreciate old school hoops enthusiasts. You know what I mean? And I like teaching to the younger generations, putting them on game. You know what I mean? That's what being a hoops enthusiast is all about. But, you know what I mean? Anyway, there's just a little hoops talking squawk with your boy Hawk. Andrew Toney, a total of 8 seasons with the Philadelphia 76ers. Like I said, would have been a sure Hall of Famer if not for unfortunate injuries. Like I said, he played in 468 games altogether, career average just under 16 points. You know what I mean? His career average would have been 22, 23 points easy if not for that. 2 All-Star appearances. You know what I mean? He was an assassin. Feared no one. Like I said, Danny Ainge said he feared him more than he feared Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Danny Ainge is a 2-time champion. You know what I mean? He was on a lot of contending teams, so as much as I hate how he's fleeced the Sixers in the past with trades, you know what I mean? It's like you can't deny a statement like that. You know what I mean? Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, Larry Bird still have nightmares. Celtic fans too. You know what I mean? Especially Bill Simmons. You know, he tries to shade Sixer history whenever he gets a chance. But I mean, as a Celtics fan, it's only expected. And I respect it. You know what I mean? He's a fellow Libra scale, knows the game. His book, The Book of Basketball, one of the greatest basketball books I ever read. You know what I mean? So, there's all love there. But anyway, stay tuned for more hoops content, more talking squawk from your boy Hawk. You know what I mean? Enjoy this sensational Saturday, because that's what we about to do. Hawk out.